They thought she was just another woman walking her dog through the park. That was their first mistake. The second was touching Rook. Serena Vance had been out of active service for 14 months, but her body hadn't gotten the memo. She still woke before the sun, still ate standing up, still noticed exits before she noticed faces. Old habits built into her bones through 8 years with the 75th Ranger Regiment and 3 tours in places most Americans couldn't find on a map. The park was her compromise. Her therapist, a soft-spoken man named Dr. Ellison, who collected vintage record players and understood more about combat stress than he let on, had suggested daily walks. Nature, he said, sunlight, routine, the kind of slow civilian rhythms that would eventually convince her nervous system it was safe to stand down. Rook made it bearable. He was a Belgian Malinois, 82 pounds of leashed patience, black-masked and amber-eyed. He'd served with Serena through 2 deployments, sniffed out IEDs on a highway outside Kandahar, bit through a man's forearm in the dark outside a compound in Kunduz, slept pressed against her side on 6 different fobs across 3 different countries. He'd taken a piece of shrapnel to the left shoulder during an ambush in a village she wasn't allowed to name. The scar had grown a ridge of pale fur over it, visible when the wind moved just right. Most people who saw Rook thought he was beautiful. He was. Most people who saw Serena thought she was alone. She was not. It was a Tuesday in September, the kind where the morning still held a thin edge of summer, but you could feel the autumn behind it, waiting. The trail through Millhaven Regional Park ran along the edge of a creek bed, winding through a stand of old pines before opening into a wide gravel lot where people parked their trucks and unloaded mountain bikes or let their labs chase tennis balls into the tall grass. Serena preferred the far end of that lot. Fewer people, less noise. She and Rook had been doing 3 miles every morning for 4 months now, and the park staff all knew her by sight. Julio, the maintenance supervisor, always left the back gate unlatched so she could bring Rook in before the official opening hour. That Tuesday, she came in through the back gate as usual, did their 3 miles through the pines, and was cooling down on the return loop when she heard the truck. It was a heavy-duty pickup, lifted on aftermarket suspension, the kind of vehicle that announces itself before it arrives. It had pulled into the far end of the gravel lot while she was in the trees. She clocked it the moment she came around the bend, 2 men leaning against the tailgate, a third still in the cab, engine idling. Serena didn't slow her pace. She didn't speed it up either. Rook walked even with her left knee, leash slack between them, his posture easy but his ears tracking. She read the men the way she'd been trained to read a room. Weight distribution, hands, eye direction, the small adjustments people made when they noticed something they intended to do something about. The one on the left noticed her first. He nudged the second with his elbow. They were big. Not gym big, rough big, the kind that came from physical work or long stretches of doing things that required your body to absorb punishment. The one on the left had a beard going grey at the jaw and a neck tattoo that disappeared into the collar of his flannel shirt. The one on the right was younger, shorter, with the jittery energy of a man who'd already had too much caffeine or not enough sleep. The driver's door opened. The third man stepped out. He was the one in charge. Serena could tell by the way the other 2 oriented toward him without meaning to, the way sunflowers track the light. He was tall, broad, wearing a canvas jacket with the collar turned up. He had the flat, unhurried eyes of someone who had calculated that the situation was already decided. She had seen that look before, in 4 different countries. It never ended the way those men expected it to. "Hey," he said, not loud, conversational, the kind of voice that assumed it would be listened to. Serena kept walking, 11 meters between her and the truck. 10. "Hey, I'm talking to you. I heard you," she said. 9 meters. Rook's ears had rotated fully forward now, but he held his pace. "Good dog." "Nice dog," the tall one said and smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "What kind is that?" "The kind that bites," Serena said. The bearded one laughed, pushed off the tailgate. "Where you headed?" the tall one asked. He had shifted his weight slightly, moving to angle into her path without being obvious about it. Amateur. She'd seen the same movement executed better by men who were actually dangerous. "Through the gate," she said. "Same as every morning. No need to be rude about it. No need to block my path." The tall one tilted his head, looked at her the way a man looks at something he's decided is smaller than him. "You know what I think? I think the dog needs a new home. We've been looking for a working dog. Good money in it." Serena stopped walking. Rook stopped with her. The world went very quiet. It wasn't the threat itself. She'd heard worse from men who were far more equipped to follow through on it. It was the way he said it. Casual. Entitled. As if the question of her dog's future had already been settled, and she simply hadn't been informed yet. She exhaled once. Slow and controlled, the way Dr. Ellison had taught her. The way her ranger instructor had taught her before that, for entirely different reasons. "I'm going to say this once," Serena said. Her voice hadn't changed. That was the part that should have warned them. "Walk away." The jittery one laughed. The bearded one moved around the front of the truck to her left, cutting the angle. The tall one started forward. And Derek, that was what the jittery one called him. And she filed it away the way she filed everything away, automatically, a habit so old it ran without her thinking about it. Derek reached out toward Rook. He almost touched the dog. Almost. "Rook, Stellan." The command came out of her mouth before she'd consciously decided to give it. 8 years of muscle memory. Rook moved the instant the word left her lips, a coiled spring releasing, and Derek snatched his hand back so fast he stumbled into the side mirror. "What the—" "Last warning," Serena said. "All 3 of you, walk away right now." The tall one stopped 2 meters from her. Up close, he was bigger than he'd looked from across the lot. He looked her up and down with the expression of a man doing math he was certain he was going to win. "Or what?" he said. She didn't answer. Answers were for people who were still deciding. He reached out and shoved her shoulder. He got his hand on her jacket for approximately 1 second. What happened next took 11 seconds. Serena counted afterward the way she always counted. Not during, because during she was simply moving, one action into the next, nothing wasted. The tall one, his name was Garrett Brace, she would learn later, with 2 prior assault charges in 2 different counties, grabbed her jacket and tried to use his weight advantage to shove her off balance. He had maybe 60 pounds on her and 6 inches of reach. What he did not have was 8 years of close-quarters combat training, 2 deployments in which the difference between a good grip and a bad one could be measured in heartbeats, or the cold and particular focus that had gotten Serena Vance through things that would never make it into any official report. She dropped her weight, pivoted on her left foot, and used his forward momentum to redirect him into the side of his own truck. The impact made a sound like a bat hitting a car door, which was roughly what it was. He hit the panel's shoulder first and went sideways into the gravel. The bearded one came fast, which surprised her. He had more training than he looked. She took the first swing on her forearm, not comfortable, but she'd dealt with worse, stepped through, and put 2 fingers into a pressure point below his ear that her hand-to-hand instructor had called the polite shutdown. He sat down in the gravel without any drama, which she appreciated. The jittery one, Derek, did what jittery people always did under pressure. He panicked and grabbed for the thing he thought would even the odds. He reached into the truck bed and came out with a length of metal pipe. Serena already knew it was there. She'd clocked it when she first approached. The way it caught the morning light, propped against the wheel well. She'd incorporated it into her read of the situation and adjusted accordingly, the way you adjust when you notice a variable. "Rook," she said quietly. Rook hit Derek from the left. Not a mauling. Controlled. Precise. Exactly what he'd been trained to do. He took the arm holding the pipe and he held it, his full 82 pounds driving Derek down into the gravel while the pipe clattered harmlessly against the truck's running board. Garrett Brace was trying to get up. She stopped that. The bearded one, his name turned out to be Felix Corden, stayed sitting. He was rubbing the side of his neck and looking at her the way people look at something they've badly, fundamentally miscalculated. 11 seconds. Serena straightened up. Her pulse was elevated. That was the only physical evidence anything had happened. Rook. Ors. Rook released Derek's arm and stepped back cleanly. He returned to Serena's left side and sat. His tail did not wag. He was not a tail-wagging dog during work. He would wag later when they got home and she gave him his breakfast, and he understood that the thing that had needed doing was done. She looked at the 3 men on the ground. One sitting, one half upright, one face down, calculating his options and finding them limited. "Stay there," she said. She took out her phone. The 911 call lasted 4 minutes. Deputy Lorne Packard arrived in 7, followed 2 minutes later by a second unit. Serena knew Packard from 3 previous mornings when their paths had crossed on the road into the park. He was methodical and unexcitable, which she respected. He took one look at the scene. 3 men in various states of gravel acquaintance. One woman standing calmly with a Belgian Malinois sitting at her knee, and asked her to walk him through it from the beginning. She did. Precise, sequential, no editorializing. The same way she'd filed after action reports. Packard listened without interrupting. When she finished, he looked at Rook. "He trained?" he asked. "Yes, military, yes." Packard nodded slowly. He looked at Garrett Brace, who was now sitting up and holding his shoulder and making the particular kind of eye contact that suggested he was recalculating everything about his morning. "You got anything you want to tell me about those men?" Packard asked her. Serena had been thinking about that since the moment she'd identified the canvas jacket and the flat, unhurried eyes. Because the thing about men who looked at situations as already decided, she had seen that look before, and it was never just about a dog. "Run the plate on that truck," she said, "and check if there's anything in the bed beyond the pipe." Packard studied her for a moment. Then he went to his car and ran the plate. He came back 3 minutes later with a different quality of expression. "Trucks registered to a holding company out of Denton," he said. "Stolen from a yard in Kingsborough County 4 days ago." He paused. "You know anything about a warehouse break-in on Route 9 last Thursday?" "No," Serena said. "But I know those men weren't here for a dog. What they were here for, what the search of the truck bed confirmed 20 minutes later when a second deputy put on gloves and moved aside an oil-stained tarp, was a shipping manifest, 3 burner phones, and a case of equipment that had been reported stolen from a National Guard armory 3 weeks prior. The kind of equipment that didn't get taken by amateurs for amateur purposes. Deputy Packard called it in as a federal matter. Serena stood at the edge of the lot with Rook and watched the situation expand around her. More units, plainclothes arriving in unmarked cars, someone with a satellite phone she recognized as the kind issued by a specific 3-letter agency she'd worked alongside in her second deployment. A man in a grey jacket approached her. He was maybe 50, with the careful posture of someone who had spent a long time making sure other people didn't read him easily. "Serena Vance," he said. Not a question. "That's right. You're out 14 months." He glanced at Rook. "You just walked your dog into the middle of a federal surveillance operation." Serena looked at him evenly. "Your surveillance wasn't doing a lot of surveilling when those 3 were trying to steal my dog." He almost smiled. "Almost. The holding company the truck is registered to connects to a network we've been tracking for 8 months. Those 3 were supposed to move that equipment today. They were running late." He paused. "We were 20 minutes out." "I wasn't," Serena said. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked at Rook. "You do any consulting?" he asked. "I walk my dog," she said. He reached into his jacket and produced a card. He placed it on the hood of the nearest unit without making a production of it. "In case that changes." Serena didn't pick it up, but she noted the name on it the way she noted everything, filed it away, adjusted accordingly. Packard finished her official statement at 11:40. She signed it. He walked her to the back gate. "You always that calm?" he asked. It wasn't a professional question, just a human one. "No," she said honestly, "but I've learned what calm looks like from the outside. It's a useful thing to know." He thought about that. "What about him?" He nodded at Rook. Serena looked at the dog. Rook looked back at her with his amber eyes, already back to his park walk self, alert but easy, present but unhurried, as if the last 2 hours had been a small thing, which, by their shared experience, they were. "He's always calm," she said. "That's why I trust him more than most people." Packard nodded. "Good dog, yeah," Serena said. "He really is." She unlatched the gate and they walked out together, the dog matching her stride exactly, the way he always had. The morning was fully open now, the sun high and warm on her shoulders, the sound of the creek still audible through the trees. She had not gone looking for any of it. She never did these days. Dr. Ellison would have something thoughtful to say about that, and she would listen, and she would nod, and she would walk out of his office and go home and feed Rook his breakfast and do the next mile the next morning. The work had a way of finding her. It always had. 3 blocks from her apartment, Rook looked up at her once, just a glance, the amber eyes steady and warm. "I know," she said. "Good boy." His tail moved. Once, twice. Then they walked on, the woman and the wolf, back into the quiet and ordinary morning, where no one who saw them would have guessed what the last 2 hours had contained, where no one who passed them on the sidewalk would have known that the leash between them was the most dangerous thing on the block. That was exactly how Serena Vance preferred it.